To give the invocation.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today so that we might glorify you by serving our community on this board. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make good decisions for our city and let our actions and attitudes be pleasing to you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Looks like we have citizen comments as our next agenda item. Do we have any citizen comments? With a approval of a bond, we don't have any. All right. So we'll move on to get somebody to approval of the minutes, please. Make a motion.
Motion.
All right. I guess all in favor?
Aye.
I don't have to hit again, so I just love that gavel. All right. Then the approval of the minutes. We need to approve the October minutes too. This is November, so we should be good. Yeah. Thought we were approving consent agenda. Moving on. The only thing I would like to say before we get started with the park ordinance or dedication ordinance, all those documents and everything, we're going to be reviewing those and having time to look at them. So let's don't go into details. If we have some general questions, board members, let's just try to keep it like that. And then if we have any more details, we can get into it going into next year. All right. That's all.
Yeah, we have a lot on the agenda today for sure, and want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'll get through this, but certainly welcome any questions that you guys have. So most of the reports on our recreation maintenance as well as my reports are in your packet for you guys to review. If you'd like to have any questions, please let me know at this time or later on. A couple of the highlights for you is our basketball stuff is getting ready to begin. We'll have practices for the youth beginning, and then their games start after the first of the year, and then the adults begin next week. They go for a couple weeks, take a little Christmas hiatus, and then start back after the first of the year. One of the things that I'll note at Paul Martin Jones, we do offer pickleball over there, and pickleball it's not really a new sport. It's been around since the 60s, but over the past 5 years has seen a surge in participation and interest, and it's actually one of the fastest growing sports in the entire country. If you don't know what pickleball is, it's a combination of wiffle ball or tennis and table tennis. It's kind of like that. It's on the court is about a fourth of the size of tennis. It uses a paddle and a wiffle ball, and so it's much easier on the joints. It's a fast-paced game. But anyway, I do have a video, but because of time, we're just gonna bypass that. But anyway, one of the things that we're looking at for next year is to convert one of our tennis courts, or at least put down some temporary lines for some outdoor pickleball, as well as the court when we use it, Paul Martin Jones. So maintenance, a lot of stuff going on with our crews right now, getting everything ready for next year. It's hard to believe that we're pretty much through our athletic season now and getting ready for the one that'll begin in earnest in February. Once it starts going, then it lasts all the way through July. Takes a little bit of a break there in August, and then we get going again in the fall. So this is a good time to catch up on a lot of different projects that we have, and I know our crews have a considerable list to make their way through over this next 2 months before we get going with the athletic stuff again. A lot of projects continuing. Right now, we're going to be walking the proposed alignment of phases 2 and 3 of the Guthrie Trail. So we'll be doing that this week, and then if everything looks good to us, then we'll be continuing with that report, and we'll get everything in January and February to be able to submit and have some more information for you to be able to take a look at. The dog park, we have ordered the canopy for out there, and we'll get that installed after the first of the year. Teague Park is completed now, and again, if you haven't had the chance to go out there and see that, it's pretty nice. We do have a water line that's actually going to be run to the weeping wall. Right now, we've just had to fill it, and so it hasn't been running. So we're going to have an automatic fill line that'll be going to that. So, and then Heritage Plaza, we're going to be putting some electric and some lights out there. So,
quick question about Teague. I did see in our packet that some granite benches are being repaired.
Yeah, so it looks like they may have been hit by our mowing contractor, but we're not sure. So we're gonna, when we have them replaced, we're gonna actually put some concrete pads to allow for better stability, but then also the maintenance of them will be a little bit better so that won't have the opportunity to be hit by anything in the future, so. So with construction projects, this is pictures of the Phase 1 right now, north of Hollybrook, so behind the hospital, if you will. This is, so I mentioned all the rain. I think everybody know the rain that we had in end of October, early November, and so you can see the mess that it created for the crews out there trying to pour some concrete. So this is actually a picture of what it looks like today on the trail. So they made some good progress on that. Once they get these culverts, all the head walls in place, then we'll be working on the flat work. So pretty close to getting all that work done. This is the completed section that is south of Hollybrook down to Delwood.
Wow.
And so our guys are the ones that planted the grass seed. So as you can see there, it's beautiful along there, that stretch. We'll put some ryegrass down to get it through the winter. And then when we come back in the spring, we'll overseed with some fescue to make sure that it's maintained. But it really, really looks good up there right now. So really excited for that. The last big project that we have going on is the Arboretum. And so on that left, that's and it's kind of hard to see, but for the most part, that's what we're going to get when we open the Arboretum. The lines in blue are the areas of concrete trail that have been completed. The ones in red are formed up and ready to pour, and so that's that picture over to the right down on that southeast end there that you see. So progress again continues. In some ways it's unfortunate that Thanksgiving fell last week, because last week would have been a perfect week to pour concrete, but concrete plants were closed on Thursday and Friday. So
On
that's
this
the way it
picture,
goes.
Mod Cob's on the
So-
left technically.
So Mod Cobb is on the left side
Yeah.
of the picture. So
So this is looking north, okay. Great. Wow.
So progressing pretty well. Again, the projected finish is late spring, early summer.
Yeah, I'd love to have a copy of this.
Sure. Can pass that along.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So that's all the reports.
All right, let's see. Right through the reports. Does anybody have any questions concerning this agenda? I mean, I have one question. When we're looking at the tables, when it looks at recreation center usages and all this stuff. Okay, you know, we got our rentals, we have our Bryant's Library visits and all this, kind of like Broughton, for instance. What is this number on top? I'm confused with that number that just, it says September, 6355, you know. That top number, what is that?
I think that was the rentals.
That's rentals? Well, I see rentals underneath.
Oh, it's probably membership or
Yeah, I'm just
attendance.
trying
I'm not sure
to
which one.
understand what that,
Average daily use.
average daily use? Okay, let me write that down, because I'm trying to figure that one out. Well, that answered that question, thank you.
So, and one thing that you will note on the recreation, some of our programming, again, has lost interest over the past year. And
Yeah.
so, again, that's one of the reasons why back in September, October, we chose to reorganize our recreation staff, and so to put a greater emphasis in our ability to be able to program things much better. So again, moving forward, we're going to have essentially 3 program staff as opposed to 1 right now. So
Right.
again, we anticipate over the next year or two that changing dramatically in the number of programs offered as well as the participation. So
Yeah, I see that there's new things coming in and other things are kind of being phased out, so there
Right.
seems to be a
we
transition.
wanted to be proactive rather than wait until things are completely done. We saw the trend and said we need to do some changes. So
All right, good.
Are you also affected by volunteerism? I mean, for instance, youth karate, is that volunteer or is somebody paid to teach that?
it's contractual.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll move on then to the Panther Park Center mural approval. I guess that's what we need to do here. Where is it at?
Yep, Mr. Jason Ellison approached us about painting a new mural on the wall out there at Panther Park, and we thought that would be a great idea. The one that's out there has been out there, Seth wasn't quite sure, it's probably been out there for 20 years or longer, and so needs a little facelift, and so he is a local artist and has offered to provide that, and so we said that sounds like a great idea. Let us check with the park board to make sure that everybody's comfortable with that moving forward, so that's where we are. So
This
with
is a
your
rendering of what he'd do?
Yes, sir.
It's a teeny little park. It kind of needs a little attention there.
A little splash of color.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great.
Is that the front of it, Scott? Or is that the side of it or the front of it? Where's that mirror? Okay.
that's so it's the east side, east face. So yeah.
I have one small question. In the Longview Mall, I think there's a mural that someone that was about my age did, and it's still there. And I'm not saying that, I think this person is really talented, but if there's a way to maybe get the local community or the high school involved to where they get to do something, because I think it really adds a lot of community value when they get to contribute. So I'm not saying no, because I think it's a great idea, but every time I walk by it, I think that it reminds me of the girl that I knew, and it also gives me a lot of pride.
Sure. We've had a number of volunteer projects. If you remember, the underpass right there on Delwood was painted by a local group. I was going to say, and then some of the trash cans have been painted by Boys and Girls Club, and then there's also another young lady that painted a mural on over at Aiken Park by where the water fountain is. So we've anytime we're approached on those kind of things, we certainly look for ways to get them to do stuff. So, yep.
Does he do this with brushes and rollers, or is he a spray paint artist? Almost like a graffiti artist?
I would imagine he's doing this all with brushes, but I'm not sure, so.
All right. Oh, I need to make a recommendation to yay or nay. I say yes.
I say yes.
So
So if
is
we
it
get a
unanimous?
motion, somebody had to make a motion and a second.
Yeah, we need to
so.
do the whole, somebody other than me.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We all are unanimous on it, so.
All right, all in
approved.
favor, yep.
All right, now we're to the fun stuff, bond election projects.
So I gave you a little homework, hopefully you looked at it and took a look. But this Thursday, the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Committee is getting together to prioritize all the different bond projects that were approved back in November. And so the park side of it is just under $25 million. And so, again, knowing that we had a couple of things on the agenda, I hope that you had the opportunity to take a look at those and put together your top 5 priorities. That way we can share that with the Comprehensive Planning Advisory Committee as well as City Council. The intent is for City Council then to prioritize that list at their meeting in December, and then move forward with selling of the bonds in 2019 and then begin those projects. So I don't know if anybody wants to start or if you guys would just want to get me, if you guys. Our priorities for us are completing existing plans that we have in place. So that's Lear Park, Spring Hill Park, but then also the easiest things, that's one. The second one would be trails, which are the number 2 rated priority for the community overall, in which we're investing a considerable amount of money right now. And so obviously, we have Cargo Long that's a part of that. And then lastly would be then any projects that are currently underway, which would be the Arboretum. So those would kind of, those are the 3 things that I look at as we move forward, so.
And Didn't they pass something to do a new fire and police, and that would mean cleaning up Stanford Park?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's kind of like,
Yeah, that's a existing or current project that would be worked on. Yes, sir.
So is that number 5 of the 4?
That's the one that the article was written about in the paper the other day?
Yes, sir.
Camper Womack?
Yep.
The old football field?
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's a lot of history there. Stanford Park is the original city park, so.
And the original Lobo Field, is
Yep.
that what I read?
Yep.
I didn't grow up here, so I'm learning. Well, I think the numbers I think are fine. I went through this before before the meeting, and I thought the numbers were good on everything. My personal opinion is that I would just kind of flip-flop Stamper and Cargill as far as my order goes, my preference. But other than that, I wouldn't change the numbers any. So, and I think it's a good list. And we had talked about this, I know, once before. Lear Park was kind of our number one, just because it's an amazing facility, regardless of what city you're in, and making it even better is just a good thing for this city. But I think that a lot of great things can be accomplished with the money for these parks. So, and many of these things I think can bring in people from the outside. So that's why I like the top. I really like the top 7, but but I have to pick
Is
5.
this order of importance or?
No, it's just from the most expensive to the least, so.
right. But I still like that
I did-
listing.
I didn't prioritize them in any way, other than just, it's
Pretty
the
apparent.
most expensive project all the way down to the least. And again, there's some, you can always confuse the issue by throwing more into it, but Lear Park does not have to be completed all in one phase. There are, multiple projects out there. Broughton really doesn't necessarily have to be done all at once between the rec center and the rest of the park. However, I think it makes the most sense to be able to do that.
Plus, Scott, it's not a case of you would have to do everything at the same time. I don't think you really could, even if it was in phases. But you do have to have some priorities, right, of what you're going to try to accomplish first, correct?
Yeah, there's only so much money that's going to be available, because the intent, I think, from city council is to have about 3 different issuances, about 2 years apart. So first would be 2019, 2021, then 2023. So you have a certain amount of money that will be available come early 2019 and then 2023 in there. And then again, the other part of that is these aren't the only projects. You have the emergency services, police and fire, and roads. And so again, when you take into consideration all of that, the total bill of $104 million, and trying to prioritize all of that, and then our capacity to just be able to supervise and get those projects done. There's no way that we could, we're staffed, both us or Public Works, to be able to get all of these done quickly. There are some easier ones to get done than others, just because of the design and those kind of things. Again, Cargill Long, essentially, we could almost just put a contract out pretty quick and get it done, and as quick as the contractor could get out there and work. But then, you get into Broughton, which is going to take a architect and engineer and those kind of things, that services will have to go out to request for proposals and those kind of things. So we have to balance all of that as well. So again, we just wanted to have as much input as possible for the CPAC committee as well as city council. That way, we're being as transparent as possible to be able to say, here are all the projects. What do you guys think?
So how would you like us to submit that, our recommendation as a board?
If everybody gives me, if you can just jot it down before you leave, or email me your top 5, what I'll do is I'll combine that and I'll email that out to everybody, and we'll just say that's the consensus. How about that?
Mr. Chairman,
Be glad to.
I'd like to make a motion
Yes.
that the board accept the staff's priority on the completion of these projects.
All right, well, we have a motion. I personally want to still submit my recommendation, so I wouldn't want to just, it'd be nice to say, oh, yeah, I'll just accept it. I do accept it, I mean, but at the same time, we're doing a board recommendation, and mine's not gonna be exactly as yours, so I personally wouldn't want to do it that way.
Okay, Scott, what were the top 5 again?
The top 5.
Yeah, top 5. I know
Yeah,
it was
so-
Spring Hill, Spring Hill.
From mine, to be honest with you, just because of timing and everything, I would push Spring Hill down. So for me, in no particular order, would be Lear Park, Stamford Park, Arboretum, Cargill Long, and really it's those 4
Okay.
are the priorities to me. And
I would agree.
And amazing, because I mean, you might be just right, exactly on what I think too. I like the Cargill, because the way you were describing how quickly that could be done, and that would just really look good to our citizenry, that we have a project, bam, bam, we're doing stuff. This bond is working.
The other thing, so I think there's a lot of wins out of that because, number one, it's a quick way to demonstrate to our community that we're implementing the projects that they
And
have
it's right there,
have
yeah.
paid or voted for. The second thing is we're completing. Phase 1 will be completed. We're working on it right now, and so it's going to connect. Phase 1 will connect to Cargill Long. On the Guthrie extension, and so
Right.
essentially is what and then phase 2 and 3 we'll probably end up going out for bid late 2019, early 2020 for phases 2 and 3. So again, what you're going to be able to say is within over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have 10 miles of consecutive trail that have been
And that would be
completed
wonderful.
or upgraded within the past 15 years, which I think is pretty outstanding.
Awesome. Well, all right, I guess that's the way we'll let it lie right there. We'll just give you our top 5. You got,
There's a motion.
Yep.
we're doing a motion.
Question. Is they complete the whole Lear Park before they get to another park, or are these going simultaneously, something's happening in every park?
We would, depending on how the money all falls out, we'll have to spread Lear out a little bit. So there would be other things that are done in between.
Well, we do
So
have a
you'll
mo,
see something happening at all of,
Probably-
these 4 locations, no?
Oh, all 4 of those?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
okay, we need either a second.
Second,
Yeah, you second, so we have a second, now we need to vote.
I think we have questions.
Discussion.
Discussion, yeah.
I agree with that.
So when I look at this list and we talk about capacity to implement all these things, I'm just asking, whenever I looked at the bond and I thought of all these projects, I thought, man, the Parks Department's gonna have to grow. Is there a opportunity for us to recommend like more help for you? Or do you need that? I guess what I'm asking. And that may not be related
They
to
went
this
through some
discussion.
restructuring recently.
Yeah, I don't know that that's really part of this.
Is it not really? Okay.
No, I think, to be honest, the way that again, when the CPAC asked us for recommendation on projects, one of the things that we looked at and considered was how it would impact our current budget, both from a personnel standpoint, but then a management standpoint. We felt that being able to do all of these would have minimal impact overall on our maintenance and operational costs. There are already facilities that we currently have, and so we're already spending maintenance dollars on some of these. Again, some of those parks, Lois Jackson, Spring Creek Park, are taking a little bit more maintenance dollars right now. So if we can make some improvements, then our maintenance dollars go down and we can spend that. So again, there's a little bit of a give and take, but we really felt that adding all of these types of things is really going to have minimal impact overall on our maintenance costs. So that was one of our goals, is again recognizing that, City Council has been very, very good over the past 3.5 years of providing us the funds that we need to be able to make continual improvements to our parks, maintaining them in the condition in which they currently are, not getting any worse. We don't want to fall behind. This infusion of $24 million will make it a whole lot easier into the future being able to spread our maintenance dollars out. So they've done a good job of providing us adequate budget. We can always use more. Everybody always can. I don't think anybody's ever turned down any extra money. But I think we're appropriately staffed, and I think we're appropriately funded to be able to accomplish all of these and continue to take care of our other parks as well.
Okay, good deal.
So I guess our motion is basically that we accept whatever your
Those top-
recommendation.
those top four,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah, your top four, and pretty much take our input and take that to the CPAC.
I thought we were supposed to have put 5 that we want, and then.
Yeah, I mean, we're still going to do that for Scott, but if this motion is about just allowing him to go ahead and make that recommendation of what the top 4 he's already given us.
Okay.
And that way, he can consider our top 5, and more than likely, it'll
work out.
yeah, it'll be pretty much what he already knows anyway. They've been doing a great job for a year now of,
agree.
keeping costs down and keeping projects going, so I think it's appropriate. So, did we all vote for this motion unanimously?
Second?
We've already had a second.
Motion and a second, so we just need a call for a question, so.
Any more questions? No? So we're all voting yes.
All right,
There we go.
there we go.
And then-
If you want to give me all that, and then I'll get you guys out an email either this afternoon or first thing in the morning, just with everything. And then, again, the intent, I think, on Thursday is to let the CPAC committee just kind of run and do whatever they want, but we will,
I'm sure they want to hear it.
but we'll provide that input to them.
All right, now the fun continues with the parkland dedication.
So we as a city has been working on the Unified Development Code since, I think the contract was awarded last May of 2017. So it's been almost a year and a half. The Unified Development came about as part of the 2015 Comprehensive Plan. And so certainly the question is, what is a UDC? So Unified Development Code, and a couple of the ways to look at it is what we currently don't have and what we're moving towards. And so what we have found is that our current ordinances can be confusing as far as development, or inconsistent, unclear, contradictory. Some are outdated. We don't have graphics. We don't have sufficient or clear definitions on things. And then cross-references aren't there. So those are and kind of looking at how we go about developing, or developers, when they're coming into our community, how they look at things, those are some of the things that have been noted. And so the Unified Development Code, the intent is for us to have a user-friendly and easy-to-read document that allows for developers to know and understand how to be able to have projects work in the city of Longview. We'll increase the number of graphics in there, so it'll actually give a graphic representation of what we're looking for as far as development and standards. It'll streamline the development process. Again, sometimes you have to go here and there and do those kind of things, but this streamlines the entire thing. And most importantly, we'll want to encourage development. We don't want to restrict it. So a couple of different sections within the ordinance are getting taken a look at. Flood prevention, signs, street sidewalks, subdividing, trailers, waters, zoning, all those different areas are being reviewed. And again, we're not, the intent is not necessarily to change, but to update and to make it easier for somebody as they move forward. So part of that Unified Development Code, as well as, again, a separate, one of the top priorities from the comprehensive plan was the implementation of parkland dedication. So that's kind of where we are, and it falls in line with being able to do this. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this since July of 2017, and we're not even close to being finished yet, but we just want to make sure that everybody is aware of where we are and how close we are to being able to have a product to be able to move forward to planning and zoning as well as city council at some point in the future. So phase 1 has been completed, took a lot of input from stakeholders and the community as a whole. had a joint meeting. Phase 2, again, more review, getting into more of the weeds of, so phase 1 was kind of identifying all the issues. Phase 2 has been narrowing it down and getting it to the point where it's presentable, and that's kind of where we are right now. And so phase 3 is, again, there's not really this, all right, we're going to present it to city council in whatever month you so choose. It's going to move forward as the community is ready for this to move forward. So there's not a defined timeline yet. We're trying to get it so that everybody understands it and we can have a good product to be able to develop within our community. So parkland dedication, again, as I mentioned, it was number 27 on the list of top priorities. And the reason a parkland dedication is desirable for a community is it maintains the current level of service that our current residents have. Again, as our community grows, our new residents, we want them to have the same opportunities as our other residents do, as far as parks are concerned. They are consuming other city services, whether it's street, water, sewer, police, fire, those kind of things. And so again, parks is a service that's provided by the city, so we want to extend that to new residents as well. We also know that parks increase the property value within a community. If you live close to a park or adjacent to a park, your home is typically a little bit more valuable than if it's not. So those are kind of some of the things that we know or the rationale for having a parkland dedication. So one of the questions was, can a parkland dedication ordinance be implemented? And it certainly can. There are about 50 communities in Texas that have a parkland dedication ordinance. The Texas Supreme Court has deemed it constitutionally legal. So as long as you have rough proportionality. So again, all the legal questions aside, yes, you can do it. It's just how are we going to propose doing it here in Longview? And that's one of the biggest questions is we want to make sure that whatever we propose and move forward with the opportunity for our community fits Longview. Every community is different. We don't want to implement something here that is the same as another community. We know Longview, so we want it to fit what Longview has and where we feel is appropriate moving forward. And so when we take a look at that, it's important to recognize where we currently are. And again, the intent of a parkland dedication is to keep where we are, not to keep falling further behind. One of the things in the 2015 comprehensive plan, the park master plan, was we are about 600 acres short of where we should be as a community as far as parkland. Okay, so we're already short in parkland. So if we continue to grow, we're going to keep falling further and further behind. So that's the intent of a parkland dedication is we don't want to necessarily, we're not looking to close that gap. Okay, parkland dedication is not intended to close the gap of parkland for its community. Parkland dedication is to maintain where you currently are. And so that's what we've tried to put together as we move forward. So we looked at all kinds of things of where we currently are and how we could implement them. And again, trying to look specifically at the city of Longview. So we have 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, just under that. Okay, so our goal is to end up with 8, but right now we're at 3. So again, we're far behind. What we looked at when we put the parkland dedication together, there are 3 different parts to it. One is the land requirement, so any new subdivision within the city of Longview would require to provide land, parkland as part of it. However, we only want to accept good parkland. We don't want to accept somebody's thrown away piece of property, and it needs to be a certain size. Again, as Dr. McCree mentioned earlier, we don't want to increase our maintenance costs by simply having a 1/4 acre park somewhere, because the amount of time and effort to go maintain that park as opposed to one that's 5 acres, it's about the same amount of time, but that's just not an efficient use of tax dollars. So again, we have to have some standards there. So the first one is land requirement. If you can't provide land, there's a fee in lieu of that land. So again, a way to calculate that. And then the third component is a parkland development fee. Again, it's one thing to be able to provide land to the city, parkland to the city. It's another thing to develop that. And so what we want to do is make sure that if a parkland is set aside for the community, that is actually developed into a park for use by its residents. So there's a fee to be able to do that if the developer chooses not to develop it on his own. So those are all the things that are part of the parkland dedication. So we want to make sure that it's appropriate for Longview. And so when we took a look at it, there are a lot of different ways to calculate where we are. As I mentioned, we're about 3 acres per 1,000. If we wanted to take a look at, and that's using 295 acres for neighborhood and community parkland. We have about 600 acres of parkland total, 650, but 295 of that are neighborhood and community parks. Lear is considered a regional park. It's 160 acres. It's not a community park. I think everybody recognizes that. So we started off by looking, all right, if we use 660 acres, we want to keep 660 acres. Well, if we do the calculations on using that number, we come up with a big amount of land that would have to be provided. And so I said, no, we can't do that. We have to, well, let's take a look at just our neighborhood and community parks. And so that's where we came out with the 295 rather than using 660. So that's when somebody asked that. Because the number, as you'll see when we move along, changes. When we take a look at where parkland should be, new parkland should be located, this is from the, excuse me, the Park Master Plan. And you can see on the left is our existing parks, community and neighborhood parks. The community ones are in red, the neighborhood ones are in green. And you can see the half-mile or a 2-mile radius around them. And so the areas to the north, specifically out in the ETJ, are severely lacking in parkland. But again, on that northern corridor, we're lacking in some parks.
Scott, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I helped out a little bit with the comprehensive committee in the beginning. And one thing that we talked about a lot was that in addition to the shortage of parklands that we have, when developers move in and create communities, when they make an addition, they're creating a community, okay?
Right.
And hardly anybody puts sidewalks in anymore, okay? Now, Dave Yowell's got a great subdivision over there off of Hollybrook.
Right.
He's got sidewalks, and to get in your car and to drive to a park is one thing. But for probably people my age, I just want to walk around my neighborhood. Me and Keith's age, okay?
Yep.
I'd be satisfied with just walk around my neighborhood,
Sure.
But I got to walk in the street,
Yep.
And I know that there was some attempt for developers, and if you would, I'd like you to speak to the committee about it, the advisory board about it, about what efforts have been done, about saying that if you're going to put in an addition, you got to put sidewalks in your community. Now, this has come up before,
Right.
so if you.
Absolutely. So also part of the UDC, a separate part of that is sidewalks, requiring sidewalks in subdivisions. And so there's two aspects of it. As I mentioned, we don't want to fall further behind. That's what we're trying to do here. It's the same thing on sidewalks. We don't want to fall further behind. And so there are additional requirements for implementing sidewalks for new subdivisions as well as parkland. So that's the intent of that, both to go hand in hand. So you can see the areas in which we would like to have parkland. So again, as I mentioned, we don't want to just accept any piece of parkland within a development. So there are certain requirements that we've put in there when you take a look at it. One of them is credit for developing private parks. There are, I think Bull Run has a private park, I think Subdivision does, and there's some other developments that have some park-like amenities, whether it's a gazebo or something like that, or just some open space and those kind of things. So we want to provide some credit for developers that implement some green space and some of those types of features in there as well. But again, in your packet, there's a big, long list of we put together a actual development guide to assist in what specifically we're looking for from developers. So when we take a look at being able to develop a calculation, so right now we have 347 residents per acre of parkland, so we want to maintain that. Again, if we had looked at doing 660 acres of parkland, then we would be looking at 155 residents per acre, and then your acre per dwelling unit developed would go down to 62. So the way that we've proposed it here, if you're going to make if you're going to either require to provide parkland, minimum size of 5 acres, which again, not many developments would reach that size, and so you would be required to pay the fee in lieu of, and that would be $250 per dwelling unit that would go into a specific parkland development fund. Again, if we had used 660 acres, then that fee would have been $567. So again, we know that 567 there's no way that that would be unacceptable. So we said, you know what, let's just take a look at our neighborhood and community parks, and so that brought that number by half down there. The other thing that we took a look at was, okay, well, if we're just looking at the city of Longview, or are we looking at the ETJ? The ETJ is 3.5 miles outside the city limits, and we looked, again, using that larger number makes this number smaller. If we had looked at just the city of Longview, then this number would have been $318. Again, just a little bit more. So again, trying to understand that this is a new fee that is not going to be very favorable, looked upon very favorably by our development community, and trying to come up with something that fits Longview and what we want and need moving forward. So again, we tried to look at a lot of different ways to be able to still have something to be able to keep us moving forward, maintain what we currently have. So that's how we came about those. Again, as I mentioned, minimum requirement would be 5 acres. It needs to be suitable for recreational amenities, adjacent to a street. Again, some of those kind of things that we want to look. We don't want a park tucked back that nobody can access. That does nobody any good. So when we took a look at what the parkland development fee would be, we just looked at an engineering estimate of a development of a 6-acre park, and that costs about $800,000. And using our 138 dwelling units comes up with a fee of $1,100 per dwelling unit for the development of a park. So again, combined, if you can't provide a park, then you would pay about $1,500, $1,400 per dwelling unit for parkland dedication. Again, if we had used 660 acres of parkland, then this number would have been $2,500. If we had used just the city of Longview, then this number would have been about $1,400. So again, trying to rationalize that, look, we know this is new and different for the city of Longview, and trying to fit to what we want, and try to get something in. So that's kind of the math and how we came about things. And I know you probably were told there wouldn't be any math, so I apologize for that. But we just feel that having a parkland, we don't want to fall further behind. And people need and enjoy parks, and that's why they move to a community in many ways. So when it comes to actually developing a park, here are some of the things that we take a look at, making sure are included as far as amenities within a park. So any park that we have has these features, and we would expect any developer to provide a park, they would have these as well. So the last part is, whenever a development occurs within a certain zone, and again, these zones weren't established by me, these were done by our consultant when they did the comprehensive plan, so the funds would remain within that zone. So if somebody did a development in Zone 1, then those funds would remain in Zone 1. They wouldn't be used to build or buy a park up in Zone 2 or in Zone 3. Same for Zone 2 or 3. So if you build or develop in Zone 2, the funds that are created would stay in that area. Again, the intent of parkland is, again, for neighborhood or community parks, is for that area, not for the community necessarily overall. That's why regional parks, and again, that was our rationalization for pulling the regional park acreage out of it too, is, well, regional means the intent is to drive, but as Mr. Lazarus said, most of our parks, we want to be walkable. The intent is of a neighborhood park is within a half mile, and a community park is within 2 miles typically. So you can walk within a half mile to a neighborhood park. 2 miles may be a stretch for a number of people, but you can do it. So, anyway, that's how we came about everything, and keeping the funds where appropriate. And this is kind of that process of approval. I know it's kind of small there, but all of that information is in your packet. So there's a lot of information there, and there's a lot of questions, I know. So we wanted to make sure that you guys had the opportunity to take a look at it and review and get us some questions. And we're just looking for feedback at this point, not for approval by any stretch. So.
Right.
Well, I have been lucky enough to live in a community that was growing fairly rapidly, and so they had to do something like this, because if they didn't, they knew they were going to fall behind very fast, and because the developers want to make money as fast as they can, they don't think about much else unless they have to. So, and many of them were not happy with the fees. There were even some legal challenges, but like you say, in the end, it usually worked out for the city. Just because the legal was pretty well taken care of. But it's a good thing, because if cities grow, the bigger problem that a city faces if it does start to grow, and this is a nice region, certainly from a climate standpoint. We may not be growing as fast as a Woodlands or Dallas or whatever, but I can see growth coming to this area, perhaps even more and faster than there is now. And the problem you can run into is you just don't have the ability to put anything in. Everything's developed. That's the real problem they face these days with mass transit. They can't put trains in a lot of cities because every inch of property is developed. And when you try to force them in, then the cost is ridiculous. So I think this is a great thing. Question I do have is, there also, as part of this, and I didn't read every little bit of it, but a plan for, let's say, 4 developers, and you can get in a region that's really suddenly popular. Let me use an example, George Ritchie Road. All of a sudden, one guy comes in, and next, 3 developers are building, but they're all building next to each other because it's the desirable thing to do. Is there, if they all say, well, we'll pay money, but we don't want to set aside land, is there a way to make sure that pretty soon you're not too stretched out with no place to put anything?
Yeah, we do allow for flexibility, and again, we would accept, land that may be on a trail corridor and those kind of things. Again, so we're trying to recognize, again, if we have 2 developments going in back to back, it doesn't make sense for one to put a 1-acre park or something like that in the middle here, and one to put a 1-acre park there in the middle. So the intent is to say, okay, we'll accept this this land in this area because it serves the needs of the community overall. Or, again, it may be less than the 5 acres or something, but again, it's a critical track for being able to connect a trail at a future date. Again, we know and we understand that trails are very important in Longview. We've put a lot of money into them and are going to put a lot of money into them, and so we want to connect our community. And so we want to look for those opportunities as we move forward with development to be able to connect them as well through trails.
I think it's very wise to be looking ahead, because we are growing. Well, does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I just want to go back to the sidewalk thing. Just like in my community, where I live, subdivision that I live in, on Thanksgiving that afternoon, everybody's out walking and they're walking in the street, you know? But you guys are doing something about that. You know, you're telling the developers and they've got to pass that on, you know, to the homeowner, you know? Got a sidewalk you can walk down, you know? And we have this National Night Out thing for that specific purpose, you know? And I think that if we can get all the builders thinking that, and I know that when I was working with the city, they'd get so mad, those builders would get so mad because you were putting more and more restrictions on them and stuff, you know? But, you know, it makes a better community because they have to pass that cost on. And what this gentleman was speaking about earlier, you know, is, you know, your neighborhood is your community. You know, I mean, yes, you want to go to a big park to have a birthday party or something like that, but sometimes, most of the times, actually, in the evenings, you just want to kind of walk around your neighborhood, you know? If you don't have a sidewalk to walk on, you know, you're in the street.
Yeah,
So-
the last community I lived in required, the parkland required sidewalks and required underground utilities as well, which was another big stink. But my goodness, when 4 or 5 subdivisions got built and there were parks and sidewalks, if you didn't look up and see 4,000 poles and lines going everywhere, it was quite pleasant. So, and they really complained. They pass the cost on to the buyers.
Right.
I mean, you know, the homeowner pays, but the alternative is not a very nice neighborhood, so.
Well, many of our trails are backed into the neighborhoods, so we have walking abilities right, you know, just sidewalks there, so we're gonna be continuing that on, it seems. Well, anybody else? Lacey?
You mentioned private park.
Right.
Okay, does that mean nobody else can go in it but that particular area?
It would be
And when we
maintained.
invest money in it, and,
The city wouldn't, the developer would. It would be intended for the residents of that neighborhood.
then
So
why would we invest money if nobody
We,
else?
we wouldn't, the city wouldn't.
That's what I wanted to know.
So
Okay.
it would be, and it would also be maintained by the HOA.
Okay.
So, again, the intent is, you know, there are many different ways to skin a cat, if you will.
Yeah.
We want to have parkland or open space available to our residents, and whether that's done privately or publicly, that's our intent.
Okay.
Would you go back one slide on that? So on these zones, 1, 2, and 3, have y'all kind of mapped out like how many possible development opportunities would be available in each of these zones? Because potentially, what if there was like 10 opportunities in zone 2 and only 2 opportunities in the other zone? I don't know. But I'm thinking like logistically, long-term, even though this ordinance is meant for everybody and it can be everywhere, if we're looking at possible development sites and the sizes of those, have you considered that?
Well,
Or
if-
have you, I
Right.
guess what I'm saying is, I don't know the landscape for those different zones.
So if you look at the map on the left there, it's hard to see on this screen because the pink fades greatly, but really the need, if you will, for parkland in Zone 1 is pretty limited, considering the number of parks and the size of them in that area. The greatest demand and the need is in Zone 2, and then as the city moves a little bit more to the north and northeast, then it would be in Zone 3. So specifically, we haven't identified any property or anything like that, but for the most part, Zone 1, there's not as many opportunities for development as there are in Zones 2 and 3. And we've already had calls and concerns from people that don't have parks in the northwest part of Longview and northeast as well. Again, everybody calls and says they need a park next to their home. I mean,
Right.
that's what we don't get it until we start putting a trail in there, and then nobody wants it there until it goes in. But that's a different matter altogether. So, but yeah, we kind of look at this as far as a guide for development. We just know there's not very many opportunities for residential development on the south side, especially in the southwest, because it's all floodplain. And so, so it's just the opportunities in Zone 1, and that's why, size-wise, when you take a look at Zone 1, it's much greater, just the opportunity to develop in that area. It's not completely developed by any stretch, but much more so than it is in Zones 2 and 3.
Yeah, well, I was just looking for the rationale of keeping money in those areas for parks, but that makes sense. And I was also thinking just, when I think about where parkland could be or where these developments could go, I think of Zone 2,
Yeah.
so.
It's certainly the primary one, but there are some opportunities in Zone 1 as well, and 3 obviously as well, so. But the intent is, you know, we shouldn't be building a park, somebody in Zone 1 shouldn't be paying for a park in Zone 2 necessarily. That's kind of the thought, but.
Well, I get that too. I just think about the opportunities for development being different for those zones based on the current layout of the city as well.
I guess that's all for that.
Yeah, if you have any other questions as we move forward, we'll continue to update you guys, and we will, it's probably at some point ask for your approval of that, but
So how long do you think it's going to take for the Unified Development Code into next year? What's your guesstimate?
sometime in 2019.
Sometime in
So
2019?
I would expect maybe
right.
by the summer to have, or during the summer to have something
All right.
move forward, so.
Well, let's talk about this year then. The next item on the agenda is the Parks and Recreation 2017-2018 fiscal year in review.
We did a lot of stuff this past year, and
you
so I
did.
listed it all out for you, what we did.
It's quite a bit.
There's a lot of stuff there. And so I think sometimes we forget, as staff, all the stuff we do until we start writing this stuff down. We're like, oh yeah, we did that too. And so there's a lot of things there, and we just like to make sure that we point out those to our community of what we're doing. And so you guys have a copy of them. You know, financially, we're in a pretty good position. If you look at how we are budget-wise, again, we're broken up into 3 different ways that we budget. One is for the park side, which is in the general fund, and compared to what we budgeted, we were pretty close. We increased our spending over the previous year. A couple of different reasons why. Personnel cost increased. We had a little bit of a salary increase there. We had some contractual increases through the Arboretum consultant. Our liability and insurance increased, but then also in that line item is lighting for our parks, and we've done a lot of tournaments and things, and so our lighting costs have increased greatly. On the so that it just kind of explains the difference between 17 and 18, but we ended the year again just under budget. On the recreation side of things, our actual expenses went down slightly. We had 2 open positions, so that was the primary difference, as well as shifting some of the costs to the Longview Recreation Association fund. So we had a little bit of a decrease there, but again, considerably under budget. So when you look at all of our programs and everything overall, our intent with this fund is to have enough revenue to cover all the expenses. And as you can see, we were $5,000 short this past year. We have reserve fund there though, so even though we're just a little bit shy, we have some reserve to be able to take that from. Previous year, we did really, really well too, so. Moving forward, and we had budgeted for a much bigger loss than what we actually incurred, so. Financially, we're doing pretty well and funded pretty well, so.
Well, I think we've had a lot of comments today, and looking at the time, I was just, if we could just save our comments for the next time, which will be next year. But unless somebody has something really important they want to say right now. Other than that, I'm just going to adjourn the meeting, and I'll see you guys next year.